Alright, ladies and gentlemen, we're hopping back into it as we go into game number 1 for the actual losers finals. As we spawn down here in the bottom left-hand corner of the map on top of the red Terran player, representing team Root for Root. Give it up for Kelazhur. And his opponent spawning up here in the top left-hand corner of the map, we have the player representing team Red Wolves. Give it up for the blue Zerg, Erik, who had a very close game number 1 on this map versus Major, and did end up taking that game versus Major. He did end up winning it, but it was after a very, very long, drawn-out game that I think a lot of people were saying, you know, you're on Ultralisk, you have +3 Carapace, you have Chitinous Plating, Major doesn't even have Ghosts, like, you have this maxed out army, you're up like 60 supply, why aren't you able to win? And that was something that Erik really struggled to do. So is he going to struggle with those same things in this game versus Kelazhur? Kelazhur is a player that loves to be aggressive. He loves to put on the harassment, drop harassment, pressure at the front, everything. So I would say in that regard, he's kind of a similar player to how Major played in that last series versus Erik. So is Erik going to struggle with that, or did he kind of have a bit of time to sit down, think about what he did wrong in that last game, or that last series versus Major, and turn it around? We'll have to wait and see. We do have a fairly early Roach, with a really early Roach Warden coming out over here for Erik, though. Erik seems like he really wants to put on the aggression. There are early Roach Wardens that you get to say, like, oh, I'm going to deal with potential early aggression from my opponent. And then there's early Roach Wardens that are just screaming, I want to build Roach Ravager, I want to go across the map, and I want to put pressure on a bunker, or I want to, like, try and delay mining at a natural expansion and try and kill off some workers. Reaper is going to be able to come in, but doesn't get a scout off on either the Gas Geysers or the Roach Warren. And for Kelazhur, that's actually kind of a big deal. He wants to be prepared for this. He wants to make sure he doesn't skimp on things like a bunker, or make sure that he doesn't skimp on, you know, or like try to tech up a little bit too quickly. In fact, that might be exactly what he's doing right now. He doesn't have any Marines on the way. He's going straight up to his factory, which is going to be great for getting out a siege tank. But does he have time to wait for a tech lab to finish up and get the siege tank out? And he's not even going to have a medevac to accompany it immediately. Now the Reaper sees these roaches. He's going to be able to maybe whittle away with some grenades on these roaches as he moves across the map. No, not going to even try and chance it. Doesn't want to lose that Reaper. But I imagine he's just going to let this orbital command finish and then just lift off. Like, he just has to leave it. Because right now, Erik is not even waiting for the Ravagers. He's just saying, pure roaches, that's all I really need right now. And he's following up with drones behind all of this. So there's not going to be this big follow-up, massive Ling flood or anything. It's just 7 roaches moving across the map, forcing Kelazhur into an awkward position. And he's going to use that Overlord for high ground so he can pick away at the supply depot. And heck, if he even knocks down the supply depot, this could get really, really awkward. But Marines popping on out these roaches, still able to do some good damage and picking away at SCVs. Like, this is all he really needs to do. Factory finally finishes up that tech lab, and the bunker getting dangerously low, but Kelazhur does manage to push Erik back, and I feel like Erik's sort of done a lot of the damage he really needed to. He's been able to have the opportunity to drone up his natural expansion a bit. He's going up to a very fast lair tech behind this as well, and he's still pulling off all of these SCVs. So many SCVs, 9 SCVs pulled off the line that are not mining. He's not mining from a natural expansion. Kelazhur is in a very awkward position in that regard, and it really does balance out the fact that he has that nice natural expansion advantage. Or at least the orbital command, I should say, that he can use those mules for and everything. But Erik is doing a great job with this. I really, really am liking how this early aggression has played out for Erik. Kelazhur continuing to lose a couple more of these workers. He's got to be very careful about that. And even one stray Ravager shot can end up doing a lot of damage to these Marines that, you know, still do get one-shotted by the Ravager shots, as they do deal 60 damage. And these Marines are only sitting at 45 health right now. But Lair Tech finished. Nidus Worm. Oh, wait. Nidus Worm was going up, but he cancels it. He goes instead for a Spire. I guess the Nidus Worm was going up because he thought, oh, I can go for the Nidus Worm with his Overlord and everything. But then he gets the Viking actually picking off that Overlord and realizes, hey, wait a second, what if I don't have anything to detect, or sorry, any vision to Nidus Worm inside his main base? Well, I better have a backup plan. And he decides to go for a Nidus Worm instead. Or sorry, a Spire instead. And I do like that decision, like as an adaptive measure, saying, okay, well, the Viking killed off 2 of my overlords. He's probably going to kill off more of my overlords that are that are close enough to his side of the map to actually start up a Nidus Swarm. I might as well play it a little bit safer. A medevac drop with the Siege Tank does come across the map, and this is going to be an interesting one because with this medevac, Kelazhur is going to scout out the Spire around the time that it's finishing up. Theoretically, anyways. It should be able to get into a position where he scouts out that Spire. For now, Siege Tank's just going to try and do a little bit of chip damage. In fact, that Queen might be enough that it zones out the Siege Tank. And yeah, he sees that the lair tech is finished up, but that lair is not ridiculously early just because I think that he could have come down just recently. It could have just finished up. And, you know, he doesn't really account for the time that the Spire was going up. Is Kelazhur going to be aware of this? Mutals are now coming out on the way. And what does Kelazhur have to defend against it? He does have 15 Marines. He has started up Stim, and Stim should be finishing up pretty soon, about 50-ish seconds, so about a minute. So the Mutals will have a small period of time where Stim is not finished, where Kelazhur maybe doesn't have the missile charge finished up, and Kelazhur's going to be taking a little bit of damage. But I think that Kelazhur still has all the tools he really needs to try and defend this. One of the bigger problems is going to be losing this Siege Tank and the medevac is really, really awkward. I do like pulling all of these Mutalists over to the right-hand corner. He knows he's pretty much guaranteed to lose the Siege Tank and the medevac. Why not just try and do as much of a delaying tactic as possible with it? Pull these Mutals all the way to the right-hand side of the map. And he buys himself time to get up Stim, to get up his missile charges. In fact, I think he just barely is going to be buying himself almost exactly the amount of time that he needs to get Stim up. Well, I guess Mutals engage against the Marines 5 seconds earlier than Stim finishes up, but you get the idea. Erik, though, not sticking around on just a small Mutalist count. Going to continue to build it up further and further, so really going to be committing to that, as well as getting out some of those Roaches and Ravagers, just to make sure that Kelazhur can't go for a big counterattack across the map. But with the missile charts already finished up, I think that Erik may stop that Mutalist production relatively shortly. He's sitting up at 8 Mutalists. That's about as many as you're really going to need just to deal with drops, and you really just want to rely on these Roaches and Ravagers to halt the remaining forces of Kelazhur from pushing on too far forward. Kelazhur, though, as he sees, okay, it's going to be a bit hard to push into that choke point. Those Ravager shots make it very difficult. Let's go ahead and back the heck out of here. He's going to do exactly that. But Kelazhur establishes a pretty quick third expansion, especially compared to Erik, who hasn't really fully, I mean, kind of mineral saturated this third expansion, but considering he's going up to Infestation Pit, considering he's trying to get up double upgrades and also pump out Roaches and Ravagers, I would say that Erik doesn't actually have a great economy for all of the things that he wants to produce. Only sitting up at 54 workers, and Kelazhur even takes a lead in that worker count. I actually think that whatever economic advantages Erik had, Kelazhur is looking really, really great. But what Kelazhur does not have a lot of is he only has 2 Siege Tanks, and he's up against a large number of these Roaches and Ravagers. 16 Roaches, 5 Ravagers, Infestation Pit going up, and more Roaches, as well as even Mutals now starting to come out. This could get pretty dangerous for Kelazhur. Kelazhur is going to continue to put on a little bit of aggression now, finally getting some of those medevac drops out, besides just the Siege Tank medevac drops. Oh, awkward. Erik, I don't know if that's a misrally, if he has a misrally with his production or with his workers. He's got a couple of mineral or drones in the mix. This is a bit annoying. But he does spot these medevacs. He's going to reposition his army. Shouldn't be taking too much damage over there. But taking a look at the upgrades, even though Erik has started up his 1-1 upgrades and everything, Kelazhur has finished up his 1-1 upgrades, already getting up +2 weapons as well. Could set up +2 armor sometime soon. I love this. The Stim chase away. Getting away as fast as possible from this army. Should be able to make it out okay. But the game has definitely calmed down, especially compared to a lot of the other games that we've been seeing here today. We've had some really, really crazy action-packed games, but this is definitely one of the more calm ones, where I would say, you know, it started off a bit aggressive with Erik, but Kelazhur with just some solid macro, and I guess maybe taking a couple of risks in terms of like how fast he's teching up, / how fast he's getting up that economy, ends up getting into a fairly decent position once again. 1-1 finished up for Erik now, but Kelazhur finally starting up that +2 Marines upgrade, that infantry weapons, and the here comes the drops. Gonna try and get a snipe off on this 4th expansion. Now, the army is over here, but the army is not over here to deal with the creep cleanup that's going on. And he's even gonna be able to get a couple of nice pickoffs on some of these roaches. He's gonna be able to kill off some more of these creep tumors, and he is gonna have to be a little bit careful. He is getting very, very far on creep right now, and the Siege Tank's gonna have to be picked up as the Ravagers lay waste from above, and Erik cleans that push up with absolutely no problems. May even be able to get a Siege Tank or so if he goes after the Medivacs instead, but I mean, Kelazhur has a couple of more units over here. He's still going to be okay. He's not going to die to a big counterattack or anything. But at the same time, Kelazhur lost a lot of his army in exchange for a 4th expansion. So, was it worth it? I think Kelazhur is probably going to be okay with it. Because as long as Kelazhur shuts down Erik's ability to go into this later game tech, he's going to be buying himself more time. And even if he ends up facing off, it's not about facing off against 1 or 2 Ultras, right? It's about facing off against Ultras that have, you know, +3 Carapace upgrades, which, by the way, only now is +2 Carapace upgrades starting to go up. Ultras that have chitinous plating, Ultras that have all these upgrades that are very difficult to kill, that's where it starts to get scary. Kelazhur is not facing a Zerg at that point yet. Erik is not there. I guess people saying that the base rate TV bot is gone or something. That's unfortunate. I guess it must have crashed. Well, no bets coming down, I guess, on that regard. But regardless, Erik continuing to set himself up in a nice position. But Kelazhur wants to push in. He's got a lot of Siege Tanks, and Siege Tanks are what you need to make it happen versus Roaches and Ravagers. But you got to make sure all these Siege Tanks are participating in the fight. Fungal growth's going down. A lot of good fungal growth's going down, and the Siege Tanks preventing them from getting in those Medivacs. But I think Kelazhur might just have a little bit too much. Doesn't have a lot of Marines to deal with the Mutalisks, but the Mutalisk count is not that high. And Kelazhur is able to take the engagement and push on forward. And behind this, Kelazhur has a 4th expansion. It's a planetary fortress. If he shuts down that 4th expansion from Erik once again, he's going to take a massive economic lead. And Erik, he's trying to get out those Ultras. The Ultras are now starting to pop out, but is he going to have enough? Those Ultras don't even have chitinous plating yet. Not for another 20 seconds. He's got to hold off, and I don't think that he can afford to hold off. Kelazhur is already in the position to start dealing damage to this 4th expansion. It's been completely abandoned at this point. 14 workers have been gone down already, and chitinous plating is going to be finishing up 10 more seconds. Erik doesn't feel like he has the time to wait, though. He goes straight in for it. He loses one of the Ultralisks. Another Ultra is going to go down right before chitinous plating finishes up. And it seems like he just barely might be able to clean up. No! Kelazhur takes the engagement. Now chitinous plating finishes up. Now suddenly he has way more resources, but it doesn't matter. Kelazhur takes the 2-0 victory and moves on to the grand finals for a rematch versus Major.